Day by day, the media is able to take control over our senses. What we see, hear, and sense in the media affects our perceptions of reality in terms of race, class, and social constructions. And oftentimes, we find ourselves lost in translation, having difficulty forming judgments about certain issues. One of these issues include how we see people of color, including but not limited to migrant domestic workers, or who we like to call our nannies and housemaids. Ever since the year 1973, migrant domestic workers from various regions in the world, such as Ethiopia, Philippines, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and India, have been flooding the country. Today, the International Labour Organization reported more than 250,000 being situated in Lebanon to carry out traditional household duties.
But before digging into the cause and effect relationship domestic workers have with the media and vice versa, it is first essential to understand what the kafala system is, for it's the foundation of the relationship between the Lebanese employer and the migrant domestic worker employed. Kafala, meaning sponsorship in Arabic, is a system used to monitor migrant domestic workers waged primarily in the construction and domestic sectors. According to this system, each migrant domestic worker in Lebanon is legally required to have a sponsor. The kafala system also confounds a master-servant relationship between the migrant domestic workers and their employers, mainly because 1. The rights and responsibilities of both the domestic workers and their employers are determined by legal provisions, administrative regulations, and societal norms. In other words, the kafala system provides little to no accountability that would require employers to treat the workers with dignity, pay them on time, or give them time off work. Employers may take advantage of domestic workers simply because they can get away with it and because of their position of vulnerability. 2. Under the kafala system, migrant domestic workers cannot resign or terminate their employment contracts without first obtaining their employer's formal consent. Once a domestic worker leaves her place of employment without permission from her employer, then she is subject to arrest and detention. Accordingly, societal norms allow employers to exert control over the lives of their respective migrant workers. This includes confiscating the workers' passports, confining them to the household, restricting their communications, and taking other self-defense measures such as withholding wages to protect their interests. The kafala system creates a situation of total dependency of the worker on the employer for her food, sleep, medical care, and other necessities. Total dependency creates total vulnerability, which opens the doors wide to exploitation, and most importantly, the Lebanese government is turning a blind eye to routine and widespread abuses.
Ever since the media began expanding globally, the content creators have been responsible for recreating social inequalities in many of their mediated products, such as the case with race. In Lebanon, for example, there is a discrepancy between the airtime of white people versus people of color on TV, which enforces a modern type of racism. However, it is important to note that race is only a social construction as a result of a joint effort between the media and society. The controversial sequence of racial discourses is evident in many of the Lebanese sitcoms, where migrant domestic workers are treated like objects from the moment the employer decides to take part in choosing the worker, as if she were a designer handbag.
بعد في مشكلة بأنه بس نحن منضوي على الإكستريم كيسز، يعني إذا ما انتحرت أو اغتصبت أو ما بعرف تعنفت بشكل مرعب ما بيكون إنه قضية.
Additionally, these migrant domestic workers exist as comedic relief for the Lebanese population in these sitcoms. Another web series, Shankabut, depicted a scene of harsh abuse towards the migrant domestic worker, which reflects the reality of what some of these migrant domestic workers go through in Lebanon.
مشكلة بالتغطية، هو طول الوقت يعني بينسحب من الكونتكست القصة.
ماي فريند.
بوي فريند؟
ماي فريند لا ما في بوي فريند.
ما في بوي فريند؟
ما في.
بتحب انسان هون؟ مين بتحبه؟
بس كمان كتير مهم نضوي على انه الصحافة يضوي على الامباورينج ستوريز كمان، يعني في كتير مطارح انه بيطلعوا من وقعهم، بيتحدوا صاحب العمل الى اخره.
ما بعرف كيف بدي يجيب حق migrant workers. عد لأموت بدي عندي نفس لقدام بدي يدفع على migrant workers لآخر شيء.
The way out of these racial discriminations is by being media literate first and foremost, for it is then that we will be able to create campaigns that seek to seize or modify the kafala system, educate people, especially children, about the misrepresentations in the media towards the other, and finally, to utilize the media as a primary tool of highlighting what's wrong and what urgently needs fixing.